going to move on to the question, is some culture change actually bad for us as a species? I came to this question because we know that cultures are always changing, right? So the question really is all culture change good? Or sometimes do we make changes in our culture that end up hurting us in the long run? So we can think of these as adaptations, right? There's different kinds of adaptations. When we talk about animals, for instance, we often talk about biological adaptations because most animals don't have developed culture. And I say most because when we think about the animal kingdom, culture refers to teaching and learning, right? And developing local responses to issues that are not instinctive or biological. For instance, chimpanzees in one area using rocks to open nuts, and then chimpanzees in another area actually eating a different way, using sticks and cleaning them off to fish for termites, right? So in the animal world, we can think about these cultural behaviors as being very basic. So we usually talk about biological adaptations, like the camel's hump, for instance, or the otter's buoyant fur, right, that allows them to float so cute on the top of the water, and then they hold hands and they're so cute. Or a hummingbird with its long beak that allows it to get in. And as I'm saying this, there are two hummingbirds right outside my window. They heard me. So biological adaptations allow organisms to better survive in their environment, which means they are healthy and happy and sexy to others. So they mate and they pass down their genes, right? Humans rely a lot more on cultural adaptations than on biological ones. So cultural adaptations are all the ways that the things that we know, the way that we write things down and pass them on to future generations, it helps us better succeed in our surroundings. So like medicine, technology, science, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel with every generation, literally. So a lot of these, like medicine and science, of course, we're going to say, yes, these are helpful. But then there are also adaptations that we might say are actually not helpful for us in the long run. We call these maladaptations. And these maladaptations actually hurt the survival of our species or hurt the survival of a group. For instance, violence against women hurts the survival of women in a particular community over time. It's a maladaptive practice. I have a picture of a tanning bed here because tanning, especially under the age of 35, the CDC says that it raises our rates of the risk of cancer by something like 55 to 60%. So there are certain things that we do. Smoking also is another one, right? That just are not good for us. Maybe we like it, maybe we enjoy doing it, but it's maladaptive because it leads to harm for our community, our culture, or maybe even our species. So one thing I'd like you to think about is in your community, probably in San Diego, but not necessarily, who gets their needs met best, right? And when we think about needs, we can think about things in the green box at the bottom of the page, things like health, right? Who in your community gets their needs met best when they get sick, or preventative care? What about the demographics? Who lives in your community? In terms of the different levels of socioeconomic class, who gets their needs met best and why? Goods and services, who can get the goods that they need, the services they need? Who has insurance, right? Again, going back to health, who has medical insurance? Who lacks that? What are the outcomes for people in terms of mortality rates or low birth weights, lifespan, based on whether they're able to get their needs met or not? Order and safety can also not only decrease the quality of your life if you are not safe in your environment or there's no order. For instance, if your community is involved in a civil war, as many places in the continent of Africa are, or enculturation. Is your culture being passed down from generation to generation? So think about who gets their needs met and who doesn't get their needs met and why. And then we can link it back to adaptation, right? What kinds of maladaptive practices are there in our societies that don't allow everyone to get their needs met? Considering we're all born equal and a blank slate, what happens in our communities, in our families, in our environment that limits some people and allows others to sort of rise?